Listen to this quote from Tolkien's work. "It is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till. What weather they should have is not ours to rule." That was from Return of the King, which was written by J.R.R Tolkien. Tolkien was truly brilliant in his work, and it's that work and its impact on the world, past and present, that, in my opinion, make J.R.R Tolkien a true badass. If you've never heard of J.R.R Tolkien, you're a loser, and you're really missing out. You have, however, likely heard of his work, mainly The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. His full name, John Ronald Reuel, Tolkien, was born not so long ago, in 1892. He was no dummy, being a major scholar of the English language, specializing in Old and Middle English. He was also a professor at Oxford, which I've heard is a pretty good school, or at least it used to be. I don't know. Tolkien, for those who don't know, really started the whole fantasy genre in the 20th century. His books have spurred thousands of fantasy novels from hundreds of other writers. It all started in the 1930s when he started writing stories for his children. They were based on a mythical world that would later become known as Middle-earth. Tolkien was a true master in his work. His attention to detail is simply staggering, which has made him a world builder without peer. Within his books, you find a place that perfectly articulates a universe where good is synonymous with beauty, harmony, and nature, and evil with ugliness. It's a universe defined by a clear light and dark boundary. Tolkien's world building was meticulous, and he created a world full of awe-inspiring places and people. Within the world he built, you find a depth of feeling you likely won't find articulated so well anywhere else. Mainly, the sorrow of fading. You read about characters struggling with change all over literature, but there is something unique and poignant about the elves in his books. Acceptance of the long, inexorable demise of their power, brought about by their own misdeeds. That's a fancy way of saying that Tolkien brought to life the realization that we all have in our own life, that it's going to end. And the choices we've made dictate drastically the type of life we live and the legacy we leave behind. Tolkien's work brings about, in my mind, something very closely connected to the struggles we face today. Let me read again the quote that we started with. Really listen, I think it's brilliant. "It is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till. What weather they shall have is not ours to rule." To bring this into something that matters to me, something relatable, something I identify as a lot, especially as I get older, is that we live in a world of war. There's no denying that. I mean, since the beginning of recorded history, it's been a constant and it's been clear. Sometimes the wars were and are literal, with actual death and destruction on levels most of us can't relate to. But other times, the war is within us. It's personal, but it's very real. For my life, personally, this has definitely been the case. For sure, there's been wars raging in very real ways around me at times, but they've never touched me personally. They've been within me. As I've learned recently, they've been raging in many others' minds as well. This war is for what Tolkien's line from that quote describes as uprooting the evil in the fields that we know. This line for me, especially recently, has been very real. There's been a war raging against things that I cherish the most, a war that in many ways literally affects the people I love and care about the most. My wife and my kids. By the way, I know this video seems like it's going off in a very different direction, but it's going to tie back to the main point shortly, so please, if you will, stick in there. I'm almost done. Hey, if you like this video and found it relatable in any way, we started a website called thebettermans.com where you can learn more about what we're attempting to do. We're looking for other like-minded men willing to do the difficult thing and grow a pair. There's a real war being raged in my mind, and certainly in my kids' minds. It's literally for their minds, their ideas, their version of truth and their values. And for the most part, I've realized recently, I've not been engaged in that war at all. I've sat by passively, ignored it, and have been lazy about it. To put it bluntly, I've been a weak little pussy boy, instead of a real man who stands up when it matters and fights for his beliefs and ideals and convictions. Let me read a part of that quote again. It is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor. By the way, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Is it succor? I've heard both. Anyways, I had to look up what the word means, and this is the definition. Assistance and support in times of hardship and distress. We've lived, for the most part, in a pretty lax, easy, soft, and luxurious time period. If we're honest, it's been real easy to not really do anything because we don't need to, especially for men. But that's changing, and myself and other men have felt it. There's a storm we've seen off in the horizon for quite a while. But for some of us, myself included, have started to look up and realize that the storm actually isn't off in the distance. It's been raging for a while directly over us. We've just ignored it. So myself and some other men have decided enough is enough. By the way, I'm almost done here. We are, as Tolkien put it, attempting to uproot the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till. So we've began talking about what it means for men in today's world to take a stand for their values instead of sitting passively. If that strikes a chord in you and sounds relatable, please take a second to check out what we're building. There's a link down in the description below that takes to a website we just built just to try to explain what we're trying to do. But I'm done now. I'll get back to Tolkien and wrap this thing up. Tolkien took a stand himself. I don't know how intentional it was for him. I don't know how much he realized at the time when he was writing his books and his stories and creating worlds, how much it would mean to people in the future. The journey into stories about some tiny hobbits that went through Middle-earth on an adventure is, for me, very real. It's something that many of us are attempting to undertake in our own way as we begin to look up and see the evil that's been lurking all around us that we've ignored. Tolkien created worlds that vividly painted a picture of good versus evil and the war that raged against those two things. For myself, and for a small group of other men, we've decided to engage in this war. I don't mean we're doing anything actually destructive or trying to start a war, nothing like that. We are, however, attempting to better ourselves, to become men who stand up for what they believe in, rather than ignoring it and complaining about it. Tolkien has for sure inspired me because of his words and because of what it means for me today. Tolkien was a true badass. I think it's time for some of us to follow suit. Hey, if you like this video and found it relatable in any way, myself and a few other guys have started meeting, chatting, digitally, of course, to figure out how we can be men who actually engage in this war and stand up instead of sitting passively and not doing anything about it. We started a website called thebettermans.com where you can learn more about what we're attempting to do. And if you're one of those few men who have decided that it's far time to stand up, please check out the website. And if you're willing, sign up. We're looking for other like-minded men willing to do the difficult thing and grow a pair.